and to the attributes of God, as well as to our ancestors who have come before us in this endeavor on this plane, who have made it possible for life to be here and life to be sustained. You are welcome here to a blog on the prototype to Black Greek letter organizations, especially with emphasis on fraternities. Part of the Black Greek 500 series of the Tamazight Temple University, which is also over the Nas Media Group and Publishing. I go by the name of the author, Michael Gardner. I want to share with you a new part of history, a part of history that you may not have been privy to, dealing with Black Greek letter organizations. There have been a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of misinterpretations of history. Over time, history changes and more things are revealed that were not revealed to the public. And today I will be going public in revelation of these things that need to be said. It is time for you to be privy to the truth. It is time for there to be less secrets and more exposure to what is sacred to the Black Greek letter organization with emphasis on the fraternities. So here we are, the prototype, Black Greek letter organizations of the Black Greek 500 series. All right. What is the makeup of today's Black Greek letter fraternities? Black Greek letter fraternities are composed of what? An incorporated national grand body or board, and undergraduate chapters throughout the world, alumni chapters across the world. Black Greek letter organizations, fraternities, performs community service and international services, and they are historically involved in integration and civil rights. The greatest secret, what is the greatest secret of any secret fraternity, whether white or Black Greek letter? The greatest secret is you. The greatest secret is your history. In 1906, it was reported that there were only 2 leaflets on Black history in the United States Library of Congress. That's important for you to know. It wasn't that there were no one was interested. They're very interested. They've had millions of dollars, billions of dollars in excavations in lands where your ancestors come from. So they were very much interested. They very much had information, because if you want to learn about African American, or Black history, all you have to do is go to European nations. They are full of your history. They are making movies where they have defaced your history and have taken your place. This hasn't begun today. So when you look at the movie Gods of Egypt, for instance, that didn't begin today, the whitening of your history or the fact that they want your history. That began a long time ago. That is what led a group of people to come together and say, hey, I want to be like those people over there. And they live up to that creed and that action. So, who found out about the secret of your hidden history and told the people? Members of the Masonic and Black Greek letter organizations and Black history. Can anyone tell us who this man is? I'll give you a second to check him out. Great man. Prince Hall, circa 1735 to 1837, one of the first African Americans initiated as a Freemason on American soil as a free man. So it would be a misnomer for me to call him an African American, because at the time there was no African American. At the time there were really no colored or Negro people. This is something that was named by a racist society with a racial structure with an agenda. So that man more likely considered himself a man of some kind of descent of an African nation and of the islands in the Caribbean. So Prince Hall, first African American initiated as a Freemason on this soil, as a free man, a soldier, a revolutionary, a Pan-Africanist, a human rights activist, an educator, and a clergy. Our Prince Hall Masons of fraternity because we're looking at the prototype for today's modern-day fraternity. So the first question would be, are Prince Hall Masons a fraternity? By the definition of fraternity in Merriam-Webster, you have fraternity as a group of people associated or formally organized for a common purpose, interest, or pleasure. So does Prince Hall Masonry associate, or are they formally organized for a common purpose, common interest, or common pleasure? Yes, they are. A fraternal order. Yes, Prince Hall Masons are a fraternal order. A men's student organization formed chiefly for social purposes, having secret rites and a name consisting of Greek letters. That would be different. Now, Prince Hall wouldn't fit that mode of fraternity, but again, there's more than one definition of fraternity, and one preceding the other. So let us continue on. Prince Hall named his first lodge African Lodge Number 1. Why did he do that? A lodge is a group of men with a common director. A lodge is a group of men with a common director. It is a fraternity. It is when a group of men come together, for those who need clarity. But the important question here is, why did Prince Hall name his first lodge African Lodge Number 1, and then later on African Lodge Number 459, according to the Phylexis Society and other histories of the Prince Hall Masons? Well, he did it on purpose. In the 1700s, this man called his fraternity, his section of Freemason, African Lodge. I want you to think about that as we continue on. After he called his lodge African Lodge and recruited or organized mainly members of African descent, you have to ask, to one fraternity with one common purpose and agenda, to make great men better under God, under the Creator. You have to ask the question next, where did Black history go after Prince Hall became one of the first fraternal orders of African descended people on the soil that was at the time called America? Because there were other orders on this soil. The Native Americans have many orders. The Eagle Clan of the Cherokee Nation, the Rabbit Clan, Snake Clan, different clans on this land. And with the other people who were here, there were always orders here. There were always fraternities here. There were always societies here where men came together with a common purpose. But we are speaking of the African descendant. So where did Black history go after Prince Hall and his other Masonic brothers came together on this soil before the Civil War, before the Revolutionary War, but after the advent of American colonists organizing themselves together in a nation called the United States of America? Where did the Black history go next? Do you know this man? W.E.B. Du Bois, or some people may say Du Bois, 1868 to 1963, circa. He authored the book Souls of Black Folk in 1903. He was a member of the Masonic and Greek organizations such as Prince Hall Freemasons, Sigma Pi Phi, also called the Boule, Alpha Phi Alpha, and he's reported as the first African-American graduate to Harvard University, also a co-founder of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, called the NAACP in short, and maybe also a founder, no, he was a known member, but maybe also a founder of the Niagara movement, which was the predecessor of the NAACP. What is the first modern and that is important to the question of what is the first modern prototype to Black Greek letter organization? Because the question was, where did Black history go next? Part of Black history was W.E.B. Du Bois, being a member of those organizations because he did a lot of great things. And we will speak about that and his importance to this presentation coming up. But W.E.B. Du Bois, the Niagara movement, and his other thing, the other activities he was involved in, we would like to say that his organizations and the prototype for the Black Greek letter organization, he lived through that prototype being a member of the Freemasons, being a member of a Black Greek letter organization, Alpha Phi Alpha, as well as being an activist, because I want to show you the history of your people. So to me, Greek letter history, fraternity history is Black history. And most of those who have done many things in Black history were part of either the Masonic fraternity or a Black Greek letter organization fraternity. It is the same that you can count on one. You can almost count on one hand how many Black men did something in Black history that were not a part of these organizations. But this presentation is about what is the first modern prototype to the Black Greek letter organization. Does anyone know these men? These are 9 men in the picture. They are Alpha Kappa Nu fraternity, the first historically Black Greek letter organization on a college campus. Founded on the campus of Indiana University in Indiana, or Bloomington, Indiana. Their mission statement was to provide a voice for African Americans on the campus of Indiana University. You can go to www.nospublishing.com and get the book, A Summer's Run, 1911 by Michael Gardner, myself, where we go in depth about Alpha Kappa Nu and other fraternities and other fraternal orders and what it was like for them to integrate a traditional white university on a college campus in the early 1900s during the time and place where the Ku Klux Klan was actually resurfacing itself in those towns. And these towns were towns where Blacks couldn't actually be there after dark. So you can imagine, this is a great read. If you want to see some history, some hidden history, some things that you may not have known about, you would love to get the book, A Summer's Run by Michael Gardner, www.nospublishing.com. And you will learn a lot more about Alpha Kappa Nu. So in a fraternity Alpha Kappa Nu, we have a newspaper as a primary resource of our research, a newspaper that was around at that time. This newspaper, there are 2 clippings I have here for you. One is from the Freeman newspaper in Indianapolis, November 14, 1903, where they stated in their article that the colored students of the University of Indiana at Bloomington, Indiana, have organized a Greek letter fraternity, the first of its kind in the United States. It's called Alpha Kappa Nu and has 9 members. The members are all Negroes who are working their way through the university, and the plan of organizing the fraternity was hit upon as a means of bringing the colored students together in their work. This is the Alpha chapter, and similar fraternities will be formed in the other colleges of the northern states. Again, Freeman newspaper, Indianapolis, November 14, 1903. The Cleveland Gazette, they made a typo, and they were reporting on what is stated to be the 2nd chapter of Alpha Kappa Nu at Wilberforce University. It is announced that the first Greek fraternity of Afro-American students has been organized at Indiana University, and I don't know why it says Richmond, the name Alpha Kappa Nu being adopted. Only 10 members of the race attended this university. So they're saying only 10 members of the African-American race attended the university at the time. And a constitution was adopted and chapters will be established in all of our leading colleges. It is expected to make Wilberforce the 2nd chapter. A badge is now being designed, and there were other things in the clipping in which I will get a hold of, and in which you will be able to hear and see. If you invite me to any presentation, debate, or anything at your college campus or online. And this clipping is from the Cleveland Gazette. And let us go further. Alpha Kappa Nu, another newspaper clipping that is, of Alpha Kappa Nu, aided a Black fraternity. Indianapolis Recorder, April 15, 1911. It states colored fraternity. Kappa Alpha Nu is the name of a fraternity recently organized by the colored boys of the State University at Bloomington. So Kappa Alpha Nu, for those who don't know, is the first and original name of what is today known as Kappa Alpha Psi. It's not to be mixed up with Alpha Kappa Nu, which preceded it in 1903. Kappa Alpha Nu is 1911. Alpha Kappa Nu, 1903. And they are not the same, but they have a shared history. The members are Lee, Diggs, Kane, Edmonds, Blakemore, Armstrong, Irvin, Alexander, Asher, Grant, and Mitchell. And they go on to speak about what's happening at Indiana University in 1911 at the time. The most important thing I would like you all to review will be, and if you will follow this cursor I'm going to put up here for you, I'm going to spotlight this for you. The organization of Kappa Alpha Nu was, here at the bottom, states the boys are being aided in their efforts by several of the men who have graduated from Indiana, among whom are Reynolds, who is a professor in a Southern college, McL Wayne of Lafayette, Indiana, Thompson, the former well-known Indiana trackman, and Hodge of Kansas City, who took his master's degree here later. These men are members of Alpha Kappa Nu fraternity. And this newspaper article, April 15, 1911, is stating that members of Alpha Kappa Nu were aiding Kappa Alpha Nu. So members of Alpha Kappa Nu, 1903, were aiding Kappa Alpha Nu, which became Kappa Alpha Psi, 1911. So that's a history, and this newspaper, as a primary resource at the time, is reporting that the first Black Greek letter fraternity on the college campus was aiding a fledgling organization that became the great organization that I am a member of, Kappa Alpha Nu, which became renamed to Kappa Alpha Psi. Here, you can see the picture in the book, The Story of Kappa Alpha Psi. And it's a book about the history of Kappa Alpha Psi. Again, this is your history we are sharing here today. We want to open up more. I believe it is time to open up more to the people. I have sat in many public meetings with Kappa Alpha Psi and other fraternities and listened to them speak about history that you've heard for over 50 years. But this, I mean to share with you things that you may not have heard. So, Alpha Kappa Nu Greek Society is what Kappa Alpha Psi's book called it, of 1903. Society and fraternity, I would like you to look up the definition of society and fraternity in order. You will see they are synonymous. But this states here, the Alpha Kappa Nu Greek Society in 1903 formed at Indiana University to strengthen the Negro's voice. Seated are James Knight, Howard Thompson, E.B. Kiemer, Fred Williamson, and standing are John Hodge, Thomas Reynolds, Mr. Hill, R.A. Roberts, and Gordon Merrill. Now I want to take you back some to a previously mentioned newspaper article that we spoke about. Let me catch up to it here. And again, I'm going to spotlight it. Again, the boys of Kappa Alpha Nu of the Indianapolis Recorder reports April 15, 1911, that the boys of Kappa Alpha Nu are being aided in their efforts by several of the men who have graduated from Indiana, among whom are Reynolds, who is a professor in the Southern College, McL Wayne of Lafayette, Thompson, and Hodge. And now let us go back forward, I would say, and let's spotlight this. You have John Hodge, a member of Alpha Kappa Nu. You have Reynolds, and you have Howard Thompson. These are the men mentioned in the newspaper article as assisting. These are the members of Alpha Kappa Nu 1903 who are assisting Kappa Alpha Nu in 1911. Go figure. You got to see the love of elders in the Black community, in the community surrounded by whites, assisting new students. That spirit. You know, we hear a song that a lot of Greeks sing, but especially Kappa sing, "Give me that old Kappa spirit," is what Kappa sing. That's that old spirit. Elders of your same people coming together to assist the new, the youth, which we should keep going today. and which would be great for us all to keep going today. It doesn't matter which Greek letter organization you are. You could be a different letter organization, but this organization, Alpha Kappa Nu, didn't care who that there was a new fraternity. They cared enough about their people to assist. My question is, what happened to that between our fraternities? What happened to our ability to assist our people no matter what? How do we let competition come between us all? It's a good question. But that old spirit, I hope that gets brought back. So let us continue on, because this is the prototype. Again, I am the author, Michael Gardner. This is the prototype of Black Greek Letter Organization fraternities. This is a picture of Sterling McElwain, member of Alpha Kappa Nu, who was also stated by historians of Kappa Alpha Psi today to have joined Kappa Alpha Nu later in his life. So a member of Alpha Kappa Nu 1903 joined Kappa Alpha Nu, which is now called Kappa Alpha Psi. The thing about that, his fraternity assisted with Kappa Alpha Nu, as far as we saw in the newspaper article and in other secret readings of Kappa Alpha Nu, which are not made public. But it is stated that Sterling McElwain, a member of Alpha Kappa Nu, became a member of Kappa Alpha Nu later in his life. And this is not to say that Kappa Alpha Nu, which is now Kappa Alpha Psi, is the first Black Greek letter organization. This is to pay homage to our elders and to our ancestors who came before us in the old spirit of unity and cooperative economics and cooperation to assist another fraternity. And not only did they assist them, but now you have members crossing over from one fraternity to the other. So no, Kappa Alpha Nu, which is now Kappa Alpha Psi, is not being said to be the first Black Greek letter organization, nor is it said to be before other organizations in its founding. However, the man Sterling McElwain from Alpha Kappa Nu 1903, which is the first Black Greek letter organization that we know of today, and we want to clear that up, became a member of the fraternity known today as Kappa Alpha Psi in his life. And also, this is a picture of John Hodge, a founding member of Alpha Kappa Nu 1903, who is also reported to have become a member of Kappa Alpha Nu. If any historians in Kappa Alpha Psi differs with this information or would like to add to this information, please feel free to contact me. You can find my contact at www.naspublishing.com, or you can call me at 312-371-7499 directly if there's any information that you would like to add or take away from, or that you think needs to be changed. But from the reports I got from Kappa historians, John Hodge, a member of Kappa Alpha Nu 1903, became a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, which was then called Kappa Alpha Nu. The honorable thing about this is that the name sounds so close because Kappa Alpha Nu, as reported by one of the founders of Kappa Alpha Nu, which is now Kappa Alpha Psi, were paying homage and respect to Alpha Kappa Nu 1903. And they named themselves Kappa Alpha Nu. Out of paying homage. I mean, how great is that for our history? What an example for us in history, to pay the proper homage to our elders and our ancestors. This is a natural thing to our people. So let's continue on. A lot of people make the argument of, well, Alpha Kappa Nu can't be the first Black Greek letter organization or the prototype for Black Greek letter organizations today because they were never incorporated. What does incorporated mean? What does it mean to be incorporated? It's a question you all have to ask my people, the people of the public and the people who have sense and research sense. What does it mean to be incorporated first? That still doesn't mean you're first. It means you're incorporated first. It does have a standing. It means that you took proper steps to notice your government as to what you were doing and who you were. That's what it would mean. But let's go for the definition of corporations, because these arguments are red herrings. They were not incorporated first in 1903, or they were a society and not a fraternity in 1903. The newspaper that we saw earlier reported that they were a fraternity. And then The semantics of a fraternity versus a society versus an order are very little. So you know what they meant. You know what the definition of fraternity is now. You know these are the same, these men of Alpha Kappa Nu, 1903, fit the definition of fraternity. I'm sure the newspaper didn't just make up something. They are primary resources of the time. We are not. So that newspaper and the other newspaper that we saw earlier, 3 newspapers that call Alpha Kappa Nu fraternities. Who are we to defer with our elders and ancestors that came before us? So let's look at the definition of corporation for those who want to argue the semantics of, well, they were not incorporated. U.S. definition of incorporated. Corporation is the legal process used to form a corporate entity or company. I'm going to stick with that. It's a legal process of forming a corporation. That's simple. So you're saying because they didn't go through a legal process of forming a corporation, they don't precede you or they didn't come before you? They didn't exist because they were not a corporation? No, I hear a lot of people say, hey, I'm a member of Omega Psi Phi Incorporated. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated. Everybody says they incorporated proudly. This is a time where this nation was not even trying to accept corporations and African American Negroes, colored, whatever they called them, to have corporations and businesses. And 1903 precedes 1911, 1915, 1906 by a good margin, and especially in Black history and seeing the changes of the time. What if Alpha Kappa Nu couldn't incorporate at the time? Did anyone ask that question? Was Kappa Alpha Nu in 1903 able to incorporate? Was this nation allowing what they call Negroes, colored, Black, and other names to incorporate in 1903? So don't hold it over our elders' head. Don't hold it over our ancestors' heads. That doesn't mean that they didn't exist. Many things exist without being incorporated. Nonprofits really by law don't have to incorporate. Fraternities, if you ask me, made a mistake incorporating, because in incorporating, you have acts and laws that came behind that, such as the laws against what's called hazing and pledging. They would have less leeway and leverage had these organizations not incorporated. But that's just an argument from myself as a student of law and a teacher of law, that incorporating under the laws of the state opens you to the state's long-arm statute that every state has, and opens you to being led by the very government and state that at that time and in today's time oppress you. Go figure, right? Let's go on. The next organization, we're speaking of prototypes of Black Greek letter fraternities today. 1903 was Alpha Kappa Nu. Now we're at 1904, Sigma Pi Phi, nicknamed as the Boule. In the book, The History of Sigma Pi Phi, first, the title, look at the title page of this book. The History of Sigma Pi Phi, First of the Negro American Greek Letter Fraternities by Charles H. Wesley. First, 1904, Sigma Pi Phi. 1903, I thought 3 came before 4, but maybe the Honorable Charles H. Wesley didn't have the history of Alpha Kappa Nu at the time. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have internet. We had letters carried by coaches and trains back then. So maybe the information didn't get to them at the time, maybe. But Charles H. Wesley is we're gonna discuss him later. This is me at the Library of Congress, where I went and got a copy of the History of Sigma Pi Phi. Of course, you got to go through security. You can't take those books out of there. You got to sit there and study. And I took my time in and out to read this book. This book used to be at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, where I was gracious to be at as a student before. And it somehow disappeared. Somebody, I don't know, I don't know what happened with it. I wasn't there. I can't tell you, but someone had the copy, so I had to go to DC, Library of Congress, to get acquainted, more further acquainted with my research into this organization. The interesting thing about the Boule Sigma Pi Phi, this part is talking about Sigma Pi Phi organizing the Black Frat. But the Boule, and I'm going on the record to say, the Boule is not the first of the Black Greek letter organizations or the Black Greek letter fraternities. It is not. So in this excerpt that I took out of the book, it's the introduction. Sigma Pi Phi fraternity was the first practical achievement of the fraternal idea among Negro college men, is what historian Charles H. Wesley is said to have written. It mentions the talented 10th, which is a phrase, which is called a phrase coined by the archon W.E.B. Du Bois, who was a member of Sigma Pi Phi before he was a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. So I just want to show you the commonalities. Then they mention on the next page in this period of organization, the other fraternities and sororities, and they stated in this that no, we came before them. Sigma Pi Phi is important because a lot of professional, what were then called Negroes, organizing this organization for them to lead all of the people to greater heights through the professional standard. And you can see this in W.E.B. Du Bois's works and his book, Souls of Black Folks. You can see this idea. So, historical background for the Boule Blacks is the next page in chapter 1 of the history of Sigma Pi Phi. It mentions that it was founded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's paralleled by similar organizational developments in Negro life, both in the city of Philadelphia and parts of the United States, it mentions. So they talk about the relative background to why they became the way they became. And we talk about the prototype for today's Black Greek letter organizations, and we started in 1903, Alpha Kappa Nu. Now we're on 1904, Sigma Pi Phi. Sigma Pi Phi, so we mentioned earlier, what does the prototype Black Greek letter organization today have? And we want to look at that by looking at the past. Sigma Pi Phi in 1904, that started in 1904, had undergraduate members as well as alumni members or graduate members, like today's fraternities. In 1904, on page 28 of their history book, The History of Sigma Pi Phi by Charles H. Wesley, their first two undergraduates were called the Thetes. They were at two different schools, which means they met to spread in undergraduate schools. But they changed that and confined the membership to graduates after these two members of what is called the Thetes died. And it states in the book on page, let's see here. Let me go back. It states in this book on page 28 that these two young men, I think page 28, 29, that these two young men, after their death, they decided to just stick to graduate members. One of the reasons which I found very valiant was that they also figured that the coursework of the youth needed to be finished before they participated and partook into the professionalism, professional work of the fraternity. That was the idea of Sigma Pi Phi. But the fact that the thing that everybody's missing that trips me out is that they said soon after they became members of the Thetes of Sigma Pi Phi, they died. And it just stopped right there. They died. We stopped having undergraduate chapters. That's it. But the fact remained, they meant to have undergraduate chapters. They were in two different universities. They meant to spread in the undergrad. So for those who participate in the red herring argument to try to be first, and participate in the argument stating that, well, they weren't at undergraduate universities though. They only dealt with graduates. That is a fallacy. That is a lie. You can read their history book by Charles H. Wesley, who will come up later, that they had undergraduate members. They died, and plus they thought the task was so arduous or rigorous that they decided to stick with graduates. It's an admirable thing. Excuse me. So Sigma Pi Phi was nationally incorporated in the year 1912 on these pages, which is the appendix. I think it's page 387. Forgive me for it being a little blurry. If you get the history of Sigma Pi Phi and look at page, I believe it's 387 and 287 in the appendix, it shows you a copy of their incorporation. So they became nationally incorporated. Today's fraternities and sororities are all nationally incorporated. So we're talking about what's the prototype. This is 1904. You have a nationally incorporated organization, Sigma Pi Phi. 1912, though, is when they did it, not 1904. So fraternity after Sigma Pi Phi, who came next after 1904? We're going to find that out. So Sigma Pi Phi, called the Boule, the first fraternity founded for graduates and formerly undergraduates, held and hid African American symbolism in its letters and insignia. So right here, Sigma Pi Phi, known as the Boule, has what seems to be an African woman with flowing thick hair with wings, which resembles the symbol of Haramakhet, called the Sphinx in Greek. In Kemet, it would be Haramakhet, and I don't speak with the whole language, so I'm not gonna Haramakhet. You know, people make semantics. You know what I mean? Haramakhet, and I mean this symbol of a goddess, the female principle, above the bestial principle of something that sits on all fours, such as a lion, and a lion's tail with wings to soar to the heaven or into spirituality, with the symbol of spirituality at the top. This is something you won't forget, because you will see it again in Alpha Phi Alpha symbolism, where they use the actual Sphinx of Khufu as a symbol as well. And that's an admirable thing, because again, you see people, and I'm talking to the people, where your history was preserved in the letters. Yeah, you might see Greek letters, but you see a culture that is African in them all. They, at a time where you can get killed, hanged, hurt, mobbed for uttering your history, these organizations, 1903, 1904, 1903, Alpha Kappa Nu wanted to give a voice to Negro people at a place where the Ku Klux Klan was being reorganized, at a time where they were being reorganized, at a place where blacks were not allowed to even be in the city after dark. And they wanted to be a voice for the oppressed people, that were called a Negro. Later, Sigma Pi Phi took the professionals and wanted to put them together and put the history of the people in that, and their symbolism. They aimed at membership from their people. They may have aimed at more elite membership to have more things to do, and you can read their history book for them to explain why they did it. However, I admire those ancestors, those elders, and those organizations for what they were doing. And for those who come out Greek letter organization bashing, again, learn your history, because this is your history. So when you're bashing Black Greek letter organizations, you're bashing your own people and your own history. You're bashing people who hid your history. You're bashing people who opened up universities for you to come to today, for you to uplift. You're bashing people who had members who died for you, died for your rights. That's what you're doing. It can be an opinion or it can be a fact. Choice is up to you, my people. Let us move on. The great secret in Black history. 1906, again, we stated that it was reported that there were only 2 leaflets on Black history in the U.S. Library of Congress. So guess which fraternity made it their business to have Black history behind their Greek letters? You know these people, these great men? These are the founders, or called the 7 Jewels for Alpha Phi Alpha. I mean, I've always had respect for their history and for the fraternity. Some members who I may not get along with in the past, I mean, that's your choice, your opinion. I don't have time to not get along with you. We have so many things to fight for together and so much strength together. Because when you take off all these Greek letters, it's our skin that we're in, and that's alike, right? Alpha Phi Alpha, 1906. I already got the history book of Alpha Phi Alpha, of course, at the University of Illinois. When you look at Alpha Phi Alpha's history book, guess who wrote their history book? I want you to look here. I'm going to spotlight it for you. Charles H. Wesley wrote the history of Alpha Phi Alpha, which was founded in 1906. What does that name seem familiar, you might be thinking? Because he also wrote the history of Sigma Pi Phi, the Boule, in 1904, 2 years before. Now, I'm not going to say he wrote the book 2 years before, but I'm saying the organization was founded 2 years before Alpha Phi Alpha. And the historian for both books wrote their histories. Of course, you know. If you don't, now, as Biggie said, if you don't know, now you know. So, let's look at this. You have the preface, dealing with Charles H. Wesley. You have, and I'm reading, forgive me for looking close because I'm reading, but the Alpha Phi Alpha in the introduction speaks of the climate for Black folk in the early history. In this introduction, it's stating in since 1900s, the development of new fraternities has been very unusual. They have multiplied in number and influence. So it's giving you the background of fraternities in America. And then it goes on into the background of Black fraternities in America's colleges. It mentions the Chicago Defender on page 28 of Alpha Phi Alpha, where it states of its founders and a C.C. Poindexter that is mentioned. And this is page 28 of the history of Alpha Phi Alpha by Charles H. Wesley. That it states that in connection with the condition, one very important interfraternity statement of recent date has expressed the following idea. The college fraternity system should be big enough so that any worthy student at our colleges who desires to join a fraternity of national and enduring nature will not be deprived of the kind. And so on and so forth. Then it mentions Mr. Robert H. Ogle. So we go to page 28. That was the introductory page, actually. You go to page 28 of the history of Alpha Phi Alpha, and let me select that for you so I make sure you all see it. You have Mr. Robert H. Ogle discovered a news item in the Chicago Defender, which stated that a fraternity called Pi Gamma Omicron had been established at Ohio State University. So it was said that a letter assumed to be from Alpha Phi Alpha, what became Alpha Phi Alpha's founders, a letter was sent to Mr. Robert H. Ogle, to the registrar of Ohio State University. Oh, the letter was sent by Mr. Ogle, Robert H. Ogle, a founder of Alpha Phi Alpha, before Alpha was founded. The letter was sent to Ohio State University, and the brief reply was sent that, as registrar at Ohio State University, I have no cognizance of the existence of a Pi Gamma Omicron fraternity. It doesn't mean it didn't exist or it did exist. It could be because of the prejudices of the day, they didn't recognize it. It could be that they wouldn't let you incorporate back then. Just a thought. And it's something worthy of research. So let's continue on. In the following school year, 1906-1907, the organization of a fraternity took more definite form. A special meeting of the club. So then I guess that was a club. I'm not sure if it's called Alpha Phi Alpha. I believe it had another name. But a special member of that club, or a special meeting of the club, was called on October 16, 1906, with Mr. C.C. Poindexter as president and Mr. Henry A. Callis as secretary. The items for consideration were the night of the meeting, the dues of members, and initiation of new members, the policy of the organization, the time to be occupied in a weekly meeting, music, and a course of study which would be pursued throughout the year. Okay, a course of study that will be pursued throughout the year. It states who else that became possible founders of Alpha Phi Alpha, and some of them did. I'm just saying possible, but all of the people mentioned did not. It mentions the origins of Alpha Phi Alpha, 1906. It states on this is page 2 of the history of Alpha Phi Alpha. Let us go here, because we're speaking of the prototype of Black Greek letter organizations today. So it says here on page 2, if you follow the cursor, although still a literary society, the fraternity was slowly taking form. By a vote of the majority of those who were present, it was agreed to obtain the Masonic Hall, also referred in other documents as Odd Fellows Hall and as Red Men's Hall, for Tuesday, October 30th, 1906, and that the initiation should be held on this date. That's very interesting. The founders of the Literary Society, which became Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity under C.C. Poindexter, were to have an initiation in October 1906, October 30th, 1906, at the Masonic Lodge. Now, that's very interesting. We're looking at the question of the prototype of Black letter organizations today. We mentioned that Freemasonry under Prince Hall was a fraternity. Now, I'm a member of Prince Hall. I've been initiated into Prince Hall Freemasonry after I was initiated into what's called four-letter Freemasonry at St. Paul Grand Lodge. And much love and shout out to all my Masonic brothers and my Eastern Star sisters, and all the orders in the world today. Much love to you. Greetings. Interestingly enough, usually there's a Mason involved with you getting access to a Masonic lodge. So the question left, were members, founding members of Alpha Phi Alpha Freemasons, initiated as Freemasons before? And was C.C. Poindexter, who is not a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, but was the president of their literary society, or of the literary society which became Alpha Phi Alpha, was he a Freemason? That's the question you'll find out in my workshop, Black Greek 500. So if you will have me at your school, online, in a debate, we can discuss this. Was C.C. Poindexter on the roll for the Freemasons? And were any other founders of Alpha Phi Alpha on the roll as initiated Freemasons? And if they were, then would their idea of fraternity have come from Freemasonry? And would it have come from especially Prince Hall Freemasonry, which were African descendants in a Freemasonic lodge for African descendants, which was first named African Lodge before it became renamed in honor of Prince Hall as Prince Hall Lodges. That's interesting, an interesting note. So we're looking at the prototype. So what fraternity was here first? We'll find out. So we have here on the next page, again, they mentioned that the first initiation was held according to, and it's, no, page 31, and let's highlight that as well. Page 31 of the history of Alpha Phi Alpha states that the first initiation was held according to the plans at the Masonic Hall, also referred to at the Odd Fellows Hall or the Red Men's Hall, on October 30, 1906. The initiation ceremonies preceded the banquet. It is said that an act of vandalism was committed on this occasion when the lockers of the lodge were broken open in order that the attire more suited to the purpose, for the purpose than civilian clothing might be secured. So again, that's interesting. So the first initiation reported on Alpha Phi Alpha in their history book by a member of the Freemasonic organization and a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, Charles H. Wesley, historian. The first initiation, someone may have been reported as vandalizing the lockers, and the only thing you're gonna get out of a locker of a Masonic lodge is Masonic gear. So if your initiation is using Masonic gear, who's far to say that it was not using Masonic initiation rites? I didn't say it, but do some research. Or attend the workshop of Black Greek 500 and any other workshops that I have on the NOS Media Group, and we can have these discussions, and you can ameliorate the quality of your research. Just letting you know. So let's continue on. In 1911, 1912, the National Incorporation of Alpha Phi Alpha. So on this page, 114 is the page on the right. I don't know what the other page is because I did not have it properly recorded here. Stated the Beta chapter was amongst this group, and Alpha Lambda chapter demonstrates its interest. I can't see what the other part of the page says. They're preparing for their 4th annual convention, where all the chapters, with the beginning of the autumn of 1911, the convention was scheduled to meet in the West first in history of the fraternity, and then Washington, Richmond, New York, Philadelphia. All the East had been the host of the convention. I mentioned a whole bunch of other places. Convention was assembled at 10 a.m. in the morning, December 27, 1911. On page 114, they mentioned that the Z chapter at Wilberforce University, my apologies. Yeah, Z chapter at Wilberforce University was set apart by the General Treasurer and General Treasurer Clarence A. Jones, who was an alumnus of the Kappa chapter on December 14, 1912. The chapter began with a charter membership of 9. Okay, it mentions that. One of the most, now let's go here, let's highlight this. One of the most important events of the year was the national incorporation of the fraternity on April 3rd, 1912. So this is in the history of Alpha Phi Alpha, written by Alpha member, Charles H. Wesley. April 3rd, 1912, incorporation, or the national incorporation of Alpha Phi Alpha. So let's go forward, because we're thinking about the prototype of today's black military organizations. Who is the prototype? So we look again at incorporation. Now, it was stated that earlier than April 3rd, 1912, Alpha Phi Alpha may have been incorporated in the state of New York. However, in that time in the state of New York, if you look at the screen, it was said that a corporation organized under the laws of the state of New York could not have a corporation which was incorporated with objects is provided for the business corporation law, and a membership corporation may, and it explains other things. You know what? I'm gonna have to pass this up. But from what I read in these laws, where it goes further, and it cut off on this page, is that when you incorporated in New York at this time in the early 1900s, you were only incorporated in the area you were incorporated in. So it was not a national corporation. It was a state corporation or a community corporation. Or you were considered a club. And in the record 495, 108, New York State 821, it was stated that Alpha Alpha was an unincorporated club at that time before they incorporated in April 1912. This is just to go over some history, and it's your history as well as theirs, which is why you have those different things. Now, this is me at the library at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, special research, studying A-Phi-A history. Hopefully y'all don't go and steal a book out so people can't learn your history, because I believe your fraternities write these history books for the public to see and study and get to know the history and their history and share in their history in which your organization holds. That's my belief, but I'm taking it, they'll tell you differently. Incorporation, 1911, that came into question. If you go to the Washington, D.C. business filing search on their Secretary of State website under Mayor Vincent G. Gray, and you look up Alpha Phi Alpha, you see here and I'm going to spotlight this. You look up Alpha Phi Alpha, file number 012645. It's stated to have been incorporated April 9th, 1911, but that their charter was revoked. And it doesn't state the reason why they were revoked in 1911. So we don't know why. If any alphas would like to share with us or with the public as to why the fraternity got revoked, it could have been some racism, it could have been anything. So, you know, but the corporation started revoked. That does not revoke the brotherhood. And so I want to be clear on that. Because the corporation, again, is a notice to the government of what you're doing, and it's a recognition of the government as to understanding what you're doing and the work you're doing for taxability purposes. The government does not rule or create something that's created by the people and something that's created by God. So I have no true disrespect for Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated or fraternity as a whole, because it's something that was created by God, like every other fraternity, such as Alpha Kappa Nu, such as Sigma Pi Phi. So I want to, make that clear with you all. Much love to you, Brother Charles Townsend, my neighbor who was Alpha Phi Alpha, who is an Alpha Phi Alpha member, as well as Prince Hall Mason. Got love for him. And we have many great conversations as men over real things. But this is about you, the people, right now. And we want to make sure you're highly informed, because it's time now to take our people on to greater heights and research and education on their history through Black Greek letter organizations. So again, Alpha Incorporation was seen to be revoked under initial file number 012645. Effective date was supposed to be 4/9/1911. And we're going to go over this because a lot of people make arguments again, and semantic arguments or frivolous arguments over, well, we were incorporated this way first, or this one was not incorporated first, so they can't be first. And then the thing about it is the prototype for today's BGLOs in this presentation. And so we're going to find, and you're going to see as we're going to wrap this up as to what's happening. So I then went and checked Washington, D.C.'s incorporation to see Alpha was incorporated in Washington, D.C. in early 1906, 07, 08, 09, anything before 1911. They didn't have a record, as you can see here, in D.C. But I was told that they were incorporated in D.C. when I asked a few alphas, and I looked in the history book, but didn't see or the national incorporation, that is. So I don't know how long they remained a unincorporated club, and I don't know the conditions, because again, you got to look at the conditions of the United States in those early 1900s and how racist they were against what Negro organizations trying to do business. And I think it's admirable of Alpha Kappa Nu, Sigma Pi Phi, all the fraternities actually. I think it's admirable of all fraternities in the early that were spawned in the early 1900s, which are, and sororities, which are called the Elite Eight. It's admirable of the Elite Eight to even have the fight for a corporation. So you look at the U.S. history, they were not even allowing you all to incorporate your businesses, to do proper business, to function properly in society. They were blocking that. And these organizations not only fought to be recognized on their college campuses, but also for regular government presence, for regular respect in business in America. So you gotta respect your history, and you gotta respect these Black letter organizations and fraternities for paving the way for this. Let's not forget. So Alpha is looked at as April 3rd, 1911. So it was state that, I think we can conclude at this point that Alpha actually preceded Sigma Pi Phi in being incorporated first only. But Sigma Pi Phi precedes Alpha in its existence as an earlier fraternity, but Alpha Kappa Nu precedes all of them as the first Black Greek letter fraternity on college campuses in Black history, which is your history. So, who was incorporated nationally first is a question now to be asked. Not who was first, who had the thought to incorporate as a national grand body, as a national fraternity first. And this is, again, your history. The National Grand Board of Kappa Alpha Nu was chartered January 5th, 1911 with its Alpha chapter. That's a charter from Kappa to its Alpha chapter itself, from its Grand Board, which was formed before or at the same time of the Alpha chapter. And it states on there that the Alpha chapter of Kappa Alpha Nu became a subordinate chapter of the Grand Fraternity of Kappa Alpha Psi. The Grand Fraternity, the Grand Board, the Grand Membership, the national body. January 5th, 1911. What's interesting about that? Well, if Sigma Pi Phi wasn't incorporated until 1912, Alpha April of 1911 as a national body, deductive reasoning should tell you that the first to incorporate nationally might be Kappa Alpha Psi, which was at the time called Kappa Alpha Nu. So if you go to the Indiana Secretary of State and you put in file number 00012, it will show you the signatures of the members of Kappa Alpha Psi. It will show you the date that the government actually recorded the paperwork. The date they recorded their part of the paperwork doesn't mean that's the date that it was sent out to them, and the date that it was known on an affidavit before an attorney at the time. Because there was an attorney that received the paperwork by affidavit with an early date in January for Kappa, in February actually, for Kappa Alpha Nu, which is now called Kappa Alpha Psi. And it was recorded in April of 1911. Interesting. So, first incorporated would it be Kappa Alpha Psi, or would it be Alpha Phi Alpha? Were they racing to be first incorporated nationally? I don't know. I wasn't there. April 1911 and April 1911 for public recording. April 1911 preceded December 1911 of Alpha Phi Alpha incorporation, right? Or the April 9th, 1911 recording of Alpha Phi Alpha. So let's go back and check Alpha Phi Alpha's recording again. Let's look at the date. 4/9/1911. There was a revoked charter in Washington D.C. And we don't know if there's a city charter or what. And we don't know if that was the grand body, but it said Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity of April 9th, 1911. So, and again, we go to the history book. I apologize. This is April 3rd, 1912. So, not 1911. So, as we see, and we can go here in the history of Alpha Phi Alpha, page 114. April 3rd, 1912 was one of the most important events of the year. Was the national incorporation of the fraternity on April 3rd, 1912. In page 114 of the history of Alpha Phi Alpha. So let's go forward again. Go forward. So who was incorporated nationally first? It seems the first nationally incorporated fraternity, incorporated as a grand body, would be Kappa Alpha Nu, which is today called Kappa Alpha Psi. So in your Black history, when they speak of the first fraternity to be incorporated nationally, if you would like to debate or have a good conversation about it, we don't have to always debate. We can have a good research conversation or a good think tank about it, because this is our Black history. So it shouldn't be to say that we're first, just to be first or to be for bragging, right? We should actually be trying to discover the truth of our shared history. Because I may be a member, I may be a Nuke, and I'm a Prince Hall Mason. And I'm gonna say maybe I am a Nuke, and I'm a Prince Hall Mason. But the purpose is not to take away from someone else's history, to uplift the history of Kappa. Kappa stands for itself, and so does Alpha Phi Alpha, and so does Omega Psi Phi, so does Phi Beta Sigma, so does Iota Phi Theta, so does Beta Phi Pi, so does what's my guy's name? But I love this fraternity, man. Like I like what they stand for. Phi Eta, pride, respect, and excellence. You know, much love to y'all. Now this is about love and love of our people and unity. You know, and truth and history, and the dissolution of grandiose ego, or the lessening of it, so that our true history can come out to our people, and so that we may try to form more unity, because we got a lot of things that we're battling as a people together, and we must come together. So April 1911 precedes December 1911, and it was definitely precedes April 9th, 1912. So the National Grand Chapter Kappa Alpha Nu, which is now called Kappa Alpha Psi, National Corporation, April 3rd, 1911. If you look at the book Permanent Foundation, you look at the book of History of Kappa Alpha Psi and the Permanent Foundations, you'll see where they made the change of the name at. At the Beta chapter of the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign is where Kappa Alpha Nu first got the decision to change the name to Kappa Alpha Psi. So the letter Nu was changed to Psi. There's a deep story behind it. I would love to share it with you. So if you want to share that, you can either read a history book or you can come to a workshop on Black Greek 500. Your choice, but it's always great to hear from a fellow person, a live person, I would say. Kappa Beginnings, Indianapolis Recorder, December 6, 1913. It mentions the third grand chapter of Kappa, and they mention Kappa here. This is the Indianapolis Recorder newspaper, mentioning that Kappa, this is quote, I quote, "This is the first Negro college fraternity which has as its fundamental purpose a conscious fraternal effort to achieve." So they're not saying it's first. They're saying they had a conscious fraternal effort to achieve for the people. And the thing I love about Kappa's history, and Alpha Kappa Nu, which were the helpers to Kappa, was that they left no what was then called a Negro or colored person, which is now called African American or Black. They left no one behind. So when they formed the fraternity, their aim was to purposely integrate or reintegrate a university, Indiana University, where the Klan was in Bloomington, Indiana, which is a sundown town. I couldn't remember the name earlier. Sundown town, meaning when the sun goes down, there ain't no dark around other than space. Kappa Alpha Nu, which is Kappa Alpha Psi today, what I love about their history is that when they went to school, they linked up with these elders that wanted to give a voice to Negro people, assisted each other. If you were not a member of Kappa at that time, they still made sure you walked to school together. They still made sure that Blacks or Negroes at the time were not only going to school in the daytime, in the summertime. They still made sure that they were linked with the people, the Black people of the town. They had to actually, though, for survival reasons and just for a God-given genetic purpose. But it's a beautiful history, and we'll get into that later. Let's keep with the prototype. But I like the fact that if you look at the first 10 here, it's the first 10 chapters of Kappa Alpha Psi, which purposely reintegrated traditional white universities. Alpha chapter, Indiana University. Beta chapter, University of Illinois. Gamma chapter, University of Iowa. Delta chapter, Wilberforce. Epsilon chapter, Lincoln University. Zeta chapter, Ohio State University. Eta chapter, University of Nebraska. Theta chapter, Northwestern University, right here in Chicago, where I'm at. Iota chapter, University of Chicago. And you have next the Kappa chapter, Meharry Medical College, Temple University. Now, some people argue that Wilberforce University, where our Delta chapter was founded, was the HBCU. I love a speech by Louis Farrakhan where he described who founded the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, let me be correct, where he described and asked the question, who founded what was called historically Black colleges and university, and what was their purpose? And the Minister Farrakhan mentioned that these people who founded these HBCUs were not Black and did not have your best interest in mind, but their purpose for most of them were white-run boards and white money, which were meant to control the masses and tell you what your major should be. And what they were trying to stick what was called the Negro then into the majors of either just being a minister or religion or being a teacher, but not administration, not business administration, and not genetics or biology or the doctoral studies. The HBCU was first created to control. I think you can count on one hand which HBCU were actually founded with the monies and backing of the then called Negro. Something for you to look up, or you can come to the workshop, the Black Greek 500, we can discuss this. And again, the great thing about Kappa, Alpha Psi, the Nus, was if you, at your first 10 colleges, or 11, if you want to count, for those who want to be anal about it, if you want to count Wilberforce and say, well, it's HBCU, okay, fine. There are still 10 to go to the next colleges and add the other ones. Again, you still see that Kappa was purposely at those white universities where there was scarce Blacks and scarce Black students. But we'll discuss again this later on, because right now this is about the prototype of traditional Black universities. So, what's next on the subject of the prototype of Black Greek fraternities? Well, again, we spoke that Black Greek fraternities are composed of what? An incorporated national grand body or board, undergraduate chapters throughout the world, alumni chapters across the world. They perform community service and international services, and they are historically involved in integration and civil rights. So who can tell us about the prototype for Black letter organizations more, and whose books, studies, research can we go to? This man, Carter G. Woodson, another 1875, circa 1875 was his birth. Carter G. Woodson is a historian, a Freemason of the Prince Hall origin, a member of Sigma Pi Phi, and later Omega Psi Phi, from my reports and research. He's a mentor of Charles H. Wesley, who is a Freemason, a member of Sigma Pi Phi, so they share those things in common. Carter G. Woodson and his mentee Charles H. Wesley, who wrote the history of Sigma Pi Phi and the history of Alpha Phi Alpha, were both Freemasons and members of Sigma Pi Phi. However, what they deferred at was that Carter G. Woodson being a member of Omega Psi Phi later, and Charles H. Wesley becoming a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. But again, you see Greeks getting along, working on Black history together, and achieving together. Let's do that, y'all. And let's show the people, because the people think that we are rivaling each other all the time. And I don't want the young Greeks to think that that's what this is about. This is not about a rival. I mean, it's not about a rival. Yes, the Noops are smoother than all y'all, but we didn't call ourselves pretty, the people did. Yes, the Alphas are seen as intelligent. Some people can say they seem more intelligent. Yes, Omega Psi Phi men are seen as more strongly and more manly. Yes, Phi Beta Sigma members are seen to be cool. Iota Phi Thetas are seen to be innovators. Phi Rho Eta members are seen to be the newer innovators. And Beta Phi Pi are seen to be, revolutionary type. But again, you take off the Greek letters, all you have is our skin. You take the S off of the skin, we are all kin. Just want to let y'all know that. It's more about unity, but it's also about telling the truth, though. How can you get the unity when you're not telling yourself the truth, and you're not teaching everyone the truth or admitting to it for whatever your hidden agendas are? And I'm going to get to that. But let's go back. Carter G. Woodson, he has books, and he can kind of attest to let you know, as a historian, a Freemason, a member of 3 fraternities. He definitely can help you understand these things. And then under him, Charles H. Wesley. But right now, because of the lies out here, it has me at a point of questioning Charles H. Wesley. But let's go back to Carter G. Woodson, who he fathered Black History Week in 1926, which was converted into Black History Month, which is celebrated today in America. Charles H. Wesley, his mentee, 1891-1987, Freemason, Sigma Pi Phi member, and Alpha Phi Alpha member, whom authored both the history of Alpha Phi Alpha and Sigma Pi Phi. Now, I have a question for you all. Why would a trained historian such as Charles H. Wesley make the mistake of writing that Alpha Phi Alpha, founded in 1906, was the first Black fraternity, when he himself was an oath member of Sigma Pi Phi, founded earlier, I have the wrong year on here, but 1904, and wrote their history? So, again, let's look at this. Charles H. Wesley wrote the history of Sigma Pi Phi on the left. And he stated in the history of Sigma Pi Phi, it was the first of the Negro American Greek letter fraternities, the first. Even though it was not the first, because in 1903, Alpha Kappa Nu existed. However, Charles H. Wesley, like I said, he could have made a mistake. He's a great man. He's a great historian for our people. And I'm not taking nothing away from him. However, the truth is the truth. Alpha Kappa Nu precedes Sigma Pi Phi, so maybe because the research couldn't reach as long at that time, and because history reveals all, he didn't know that Alpha Kappa Nu existed. So he put that in the history of Sigma Pi Phi, written by Charles H. Wesley right here, that it was the first of the Negro American Greek letter fraternities. And then he wrote the history of Alpha Phi Alpha right here, says again, Charles H. Wesley, same man. That's an interesting thing. Did he make that mistake? Or did someone later with a later agenda make that mistake and said in the same book by the same author that Alpha Phi Alpha is the first? The first. But the question here is, what is the prototype? Not just the first. What is the prototype? So, if you want to ask an alpha who's knowledgeable on the subject, whom I had the pleasure of meeting 2 times and sat in 2 of his workshops, Dr. Walter Kimbrough, author of the book Black Greek 101, and a member of Alpha Alpha fraternity, and the president of a college. I believe he's been the president of 2. I could be mistaken. That's his picture here on the left. That's his book cover on the right. It is a great book. I've seen other works, but one of the greatest 2 Greek history book, well, the greatest 3, because my book, 1911, A Summer's Run, by Michael Gardner, I consider one of the greatest Greek books of all time out. And I can challenge you, you can read it, and it's dealing with Freemasonry, the Ku Klux Klan, and Black Greek letter organizations on traditional white universities in the early 1900s. So that history in itself should say a lot. Action, drama, romance, everything you need is in that book. So you can go to www.naspublishing.com to review that book. And I'm going to pause for a second for a commercial break, and then we will get back to the rest of the presentation for you all. And I very much appreciate you all for bearing with me on this.
Is there a secret war between the Mafia, the Freemasons, street gangs, or government agents? Find out in Michael Gardner's new action-packed mystery, American in a Sense. This work has organizations with so much at stake that they selectively murder anyone who gets in their way. One of FBI top agents, Tom Chi, investigates the unsolved murder of a Chicago teenager, Dick, the city's Irish mayor, Lawrence, leader of the city's black gangs, and Mr. G, an Italian mob boss, are all implicated in the murder. The mystery explodes when MG, a teen assassin, becomes a witness for the prosecution and leads Agent Khan to investigate America's most powerful organization, a war between many organizations. One witness, one agent, through many races, they are all American in a sense. Michael Gardner's American in a Sense, available online at www.amazon.com and www.masspublishing.com.
Thank you for allowing us to pause for that commercial break. Let's get back to the presentation. The prototype of Black Greek letter organizations with emphasis on fraternities. And we paused on Dr. Walter Kimbrough, author of Black Greek 101. Let's get back to that. And we're going back through some of the things we went through for you all. It's taking a long time to get here. And I thank you all, and I appreciate you all for being here. And I hope you all are having a blessed and wonderful day today. And, you know, call me down. You can find me at you can actually email me at naspublishing@gmail.com if you would like any comments, concerns, any information you want to share, debates, workshops, or anything you would like to invite me to. Panel discussions on Black Greek letter organization or Black history or hidden Black history is where my specific research deals with. So we were talking about Black Greek 101, written by Dr. Walter Kimbrough, who is a member of Alpha Alpha. And this is one of the greater books. So save your money on a lot of books. I'm going to show you the 3 books, the 2 other books outside of my book that deals best with Greek letter organizations. Anything other than these 2 books I'm going to show you, you can get that information online. And it's, you know, it's not to knock anyone for doing the research and trying to get it before you're making any money. Make your money, but it's to inform you, the people, that sometimes you have to spend money for research. I mean, when it's just regular research. But if you want to go in depth of Black Greek letter organizations, Black Greek 101 is a book that I would suggest. Buy it after you buy my book, though. I'm just saying, Dr. Walter Kimbrough, my bad, bro, but yeah, I gotta let them know. So buy it after you buy my book, 1911, The Summer's Run. but it'll be a good part of your collection. It is very informative. And I'm hoping to do a book with these fellows, an anthology with them soon on the hidden history of Black Greek letter organizations. So when I sat there at U of I, Urbana-Champaign, where I first met Dr. Walter Kimbrough in person after I bought his book, Black Greek 101, he blew my mind when he told the Alphas, we are not the first, bros. We're not the first. He said it himself. Now, if somebody got the recording you want to share with me, you can email me at naspublishing@gmail.com, and we can get the recording out. Or you can just call up Dr. Walter Kimbrough if he has time from running his university and ask him, or read his book, and he'll tell you, because we're talking about the prototype of Black Greek letter organization. But Alpha, and all sense of truth to the people, and all sense of the truth of history, you must, at this time, cease the misinterpretation of history of saying that your fraternity is the first of the Black Greek letter organization, is the first Black Greek letter fraternity. It is not. Alpha Kappa Nu, 1903 is the first. Next is Sigma Pi Phi. In the book Black Greek 101, I believe Dr. Kimbrough mentions a Gamma Phi Society, if I'm not mistaken, or Gamma Omicron, I'm not sure. But they're somewhere in 1904 as well. And then in 1906 came Alpha Phi Alpha. So, but the first you cannot be. And to thwart the truth of history is a sin against your people that the oppressor even does. And it's not a knock on Alpha, because Alpha founders, even C.C. Poindexter, the founder of his literary society, he's not a member of Alpha by Alpha historically, but these are Freemasons, these are my brothers. So I mean no harm, disrespect to these elders and ancestors. However, youth, you're teaching the wrong thing when you're telling people you're the first, and if that's not the biggest thing about Alpha by Alpha you got to stand on. Y'all did so much that you don't have to tell people you're first. That's not it's not true. And it's not the biggest thing about you. Tell them your history, which is their history, and they will see the greatness of Alpha Phi Alpha. So all historians who are banding with that bandwagon or saying they're first all the time, and you forgetting Alpha Kappa Nu, the people who came to give a voice to the Negro people in the midst of the Ku Klux Klan's reorganization, stop it. Come on, son. Come on, be cool, Joe, in Chicago. Do what you gotta do and tell the truth to the people. The people deserve the truth, and it's now a time for more enlightenment. And I am the author, Michael Gardner. This is a presentation of Tamazight Temple University and Nas Media Group, Incorporated, and Nas Publishing, which are owned by Tamazight Temple University. I am the author. We are registered. We are registered organized businesses. It's a registered religious organization. So, and we are trademarked. So don't make mistakes. Don't steal information. Don't make mistakes, because I hate to have to sue people. But I love to protect the integrity and the information and the intellectual property that our Creator has blessed me with through my Oreo, my head. And I want to continue that protection. So, Dr. Walter Kimbrough, we're not the first, bros. Alphas, respect your roots, as you say. I heard it saying when I first got to college, Alpha by Alpha was saying, respect your roots. You know, I ain't gonna say the curse word to it. And when I first got to college, you know, I enjoyed that. I found a lot of cool alphas as cool people. I even went to you know, get information on the organization when I first got to college. But again, you know, my love and my heart went to, I went to everybody. I wanted to get information on everybody. Like, you got all the people say, well, your first love should be this. Look, man, I came from the streets as a gangster or a disciple, or gangster disciple when I was younger, which is a street fraternity, a fraternity that's not on college campus. Had colors, handshakes, paid dues, picnics, same thing I do as a member of Kappa. So I don't knock any urban organization or none of my urban families. I don't think you should either. All the murder and killing and all that stuff should cease. And the agents involved in helping push some of those murders and killings should cease as well, because some of the leaders of those three organizations did work as informants or members of some of these governmental organizations. So hopefully, God is above me, so God protect me. I got to say what it is. If you get my book, American Innocence, you'll see this. But at any rate, everyone should respect their roots. And what are your roots? What are the prototypes to today's modern fraternities? Prince Hall Mason is a prototype, 1775. Alpha Kappa Nu, 1903 is a prototype. Sigma Pi Phi, 1904 is a prototype. But before them, you have our ancestors as a prototype to these organizations. Before them, you have Christianity, Islam as well, Judaism as well, and whatever the members are, and whatever the founders were, as well as the African rites, what they would call religions in other cultures. I don't believe that the word religion has to do with an African thing. It's just our way under God. Kemet, Olu or Oludumare, or how you would say in English, God. Those are the main prototypes. But the early prototypes, again, you have Prince Hall, 1775, the first fraternity amongst the Negro, colored, black, Moors, whatever title you go under. Alpha Kappa Nu, 1903, is a prototype. Sigma Pi Phi, 1904. And the laws of corporations, let's not forget again, the first incorporated, and if you want to challenge it, please let me know. Gregory L. Parks, anybody else, let me know. Kappa Alpha Psi, which was then Kappa Alpha Nu, seems to be the first nationally incorporated fraternity. And I would like and challenge for any historian from Kappa or any other Divine Nine organizations. So you can come forward. If I'm wrong, let me know, and I'll get on here to say I'm wrong. But in the meantime, this is going to be rolling on you. So, for you all staying here, here's a treat. I want to tell you a greater, deeper secret about these black letter organizations. Because a lot of you ask the question, why y'all wear Greek letters? I've heard people say, I heard my black activists and my black power movement people say, I ain't down with y'all if y'all wear Greek letters. Again, look at the history again, which is your history. And look at the people involved in your history who are in these organizations. And see the fact, and look at the first historians you have for your people who were in these organizations. And tell yourself, why are you asking why Greek letters? Well, at the time, you know what? I was going to tell you that part, but again, my bad. That's in the Black Greek letter. That's in the Black Greek 500 workshop series. You can have me come in there, and only at that workshop would I further explain to you why Greek letters. But we can say this: Greek letters were only the face of these organizations, because behind every Greek letter of these organizations is actual hidden African and Christian and Muslim and Jewish history. Want me to show you? Come to the workshop. Rosetta Stone, where the Greek letter was transferred from the Egyptian Kemet writing and to the different lettering system, as something you can study and understand that Greek letters may have to do with letters of Egypt or Kemet, which is in Africa, not Saudi Arabia, not Israel. Egypt is a Greek word for a part of Africa, but so is Israel. Israel is the word for a part of Africa. Want to play with it? Let's go. You know, we can go to the Septuagint, written in Greek, Koine Greek, and ask us by Greek letters. But we can go further into this at a workshop. So if you want to have me at your school, your organization, again, you can contact me at naspublishing@gmail.com, or you can go to the website www.naspublishing.com. So for those who want to see the Matrix, let's go over a discussion. What's a secret? Can I give you any secret, any tidbits? I don't know. But I think we did discuss some hidden history. The power of Alpha and Kappa working together is thus. Martin Luther King, Alpha Phi Alpha, Reverend Ralph Abernathy, Kappa Alpha Psi. Can you see the power of Alpha and Kappa working together? You see the achievement these men who are part of these organizations did, a Poor People's Bill of Rights, a Poor People's March, into where his best friend, the best friend of Ralph Abernathy of Kappa and the Mason, Martin Luther King, was assassinated. And Ralph Abernathy, he was assassinated for the Poor People's Bill of Rights, was not spoken to in the last 3 years by the modern media, and had changed his philosophy from that turn and cheek shit that y'all like to say, I forgive the person who shot 9 people at a church. I'm not forgiving nobody. We need to stop forgiving oppressors, or you're going to stay oppressed. The longer you forgive your oppression, the longer you and your children stay oppressed. So, Ralph Abernathy actually completed the work. Kappa man, Ralph Abernathy, the Reverend, actually completed the work of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an alpha man. Completed the work. And it was the power of them together. It shows the power of taking these organizations and coming together. But first, to come together, there has to be a truth. Snap to it. There has to be a truth. You got to tell the truth to the people and about their history. But wait, there are prototypes to all BGLOs and Freemasons. Who and what? Who's the prototype to the Freemasons? Who's the prototype to the Prince Hall Freemason? Because now I will give you a tidbit secret for you staying on to this video longer. Alpha Kappa Nu may be the first Black Greek letter organization. Phi Beta Kappa Honorary Society might be seen as America's first Greek letter organization, but there is a Greek letter organization that you know that's older than them all, whose history is not telling the truth about. So in the workshop Black Greek 500, you can find that out. For information on it, go to www.naspublishing.com or email me at naspublishing@gmail.com. So stay tuned for part 2 of the prototype, where we cover, and the part 2 of Black Greek 500. And this has been a Nas Media Group and Publishing production. The greatest secret of Greek and Masonic organizations. Man, you want to know? Because I see a lot of these Christian ministers on YouTube attacking the Greek letter organization, saying that they're Satanists and all these things. You're a liar. You're uninformed to the highest degree of accuracy. And God don't like liars. So study this history. If you want to ask somebody, you can email me, naspublishing.com. Again, the author Michael Gardner, and I can help you understand some things about these organizations that you have no understanding over. If you call them, and you don't think that God is first for them. God is first for every Greek letter organization, Black Greek letter organization. And again, I'll say it again. God is first for every Black Greek letter organization. But you don't gotta believe me? Ask for the proof. Or I come to a panel where you are. Let's do it. Fellow minister, fellow priest. What's the true prototype of BGLOs and the KA side? So I want to say this, Alpha Alpha, you are not the prototype of Kappa Alpha Psi. Kappa Alpha Psi, which is called Kappa Alpha Nu, tells you in his history book and in another secret book written by a founder, it mentions the Freemasons without name, but our founders were Mason, like some of your founders, like Just was for the Omega Psi Phi, who went to Howard University with the founders of Kappa Alpha Psi, Armstrong and Diggs, and they knew each other. From what I read, they were all Masons. Founders of most of these organizations were Masons of the divine, of the first, let's say, Alpha Kappa Nu, Sigma Pi Phi, Alpha Phi Alpha,